Welcome to Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. It's like coffee with an analyst, or it could be whiskey with an analyst reading a spreadsheet, linking crime events, identifying a series, and getting the latest scoop on association news and training. So please don't be that analyst and join us as we define the law enforcement analysis profession one episode at a time.
How we doing, analysts? Jason Elder here with the IALEIA update. It's been a while, but I finally tracked down Alex. Alex Gulde, how we doing?
We're doing great, Jason. How are you today?
I am doing very well. It's been a little bit. Certainly a lot going on, and a lot going on there with you at work, at home, and whatnot. So I'm glad that you're here today. There's plenty of things that we have to go over in terms of IALEIA. Certainly, we're going to get to the conference. We're going to get to elections, and we got some training to go over. What do you want to go over first?
Well, let's start with training. This is a pretty exciting new offering that IALEIA is doing. And so starting in January of next year, so 2025, just a few more months from now, IALEIA is going to be offering a new 12-week online course called ArcGIS for Criminal Intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And that course provides training on foundational concepts, applying GIS to crime intel analysis. And the idea is really just to help analysts use GIS as part of their everyday intelligence practice, if that's something that's useful for them. So the plan is to offer this course on a quarterly basis. And when you go to the website, you can see the schedule is already lined out for the entire year. And the class that's starting in January is open for registration right now. And we'll maybe we can include the link to that class in the posting or something like that. But it's easy to find on the IALEIA website as well. So
yeah, and I was just going to add that we'll put the link to this class in the show notes. I see here also in the information that you sent me, the cost is $450 for IALEIA members. Is this going to be only for IALEIA members?
No, I think that no, it's not. Anybody can partake in this and sign up. There's I want to say it is $550 for non-IALEIA members. So pro tip, save $50, become an IALEIA member before signing up for the class, and that's how it would go. But yes, anybody can sign up for the class, but it is.
Oh, I see it now. You are right. It is $550 for non-members. So yes, you will save $50 if you become a member and then sign up for the class. And this is for analysts new to ArcGIS, experienced. Where does this class fit?
I think they are aiming probably at sort of the entire range. I mean, if you're using ArcGIS already and you're comfortable and you have that as part of your daily practice, maybe you're not getting that much out of it. But for somebody who has never used it or who wants to refresh some knowledge, I think this is probably the right class. This is one of those things, like I have had numerous training courses in GIS for intel analysis over the years, and I've never used it. So I have sort of this dormant knowledge, but I can't really apply it. So, to me, this sounds like an interesting class, especially if my leadership came to me and said, "Hey, Alex, we need you to dust this stuff up." I'd be like, let me take this class.
This class is being taught by Stacy Belledin, who I've had on the show. So, and
yes,
she is a wonderful instructor and well-versed in ArcGIS. So I'll actually put the link to her episode in the show notes, because we did talk a lot about ArcGIS in her episode. Interesting that's going to be taught quarterly, rotate throughout the whole year. That should be a really good training. Looking forward to seeing how that works out. Okay, so we're moving on to the conference now?
Yeah.
All right.
We've briefly talked about it in the last update, and I want to add just a couple of things, so reiterate. So conference, or the annual training event, as it's officially called with LEIU, it will take place April 7th through the 11th, 2025 in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So if you are planning on attending, make sure you have a passport, and also start looking into whether you need to hold a entry visa for Canada. I am not an immigration specialist or anything like that, but out of curiosity, I looked at that. If you are a US passport holder, it's pretty straightforward. If you do not hold a US passport, you do have to make sure that you go through the process at Immigration Canada and secure that visa ahead of time. So just a heads up, you can't just show up or plan on it on short notice. having said that, registration is open on the website for the conference. Looks like a beautiful host hotel. I'm really excited about it and hope I get to go myself.
Yeah, hopefully most people have their passports, because if you have to get a brand new passport, you're really cutting it short here before the conference is there from April 7th through the 11th.
Correct. Related to the conference, I wanted to mention something else. So the call for presentations is still open. So anybody who's interested to present and speak at the conference is currently requested to submit a proposal of 1 page or less. So you do not have to have your entire presentation ready to go at this point, but you need to be able to put a 1 pager together on any of these topics that generally draw some interest. So cyber investigations, intel analysis, organized crime, terrorism, both kinds, domestic and international, gangs, smuggling, human trafficking, investigative criminal intelligence, or any other topic that you might feel is relevant to current trends or issues facing law enforcement with an investigative or intel nexus.
All right.
So it's pretty broad. So if you have something to share, please consider submitting a proposal or presentation.
Yeah, and then you gave a pro tip before. Do you have any pro tips on maybe a topic that you would like to see, or something that they should include in their 1 pager?
So I would hesitate to limit anybody's topics, but the idea is always whatever you're proposing to talk about should reflect best practices, some practical applications. I had some analysts who I will not give any details because I do not know if they've actually submitted a proposal, but they've asked me a lot of questions about the process a few weeks ago, and I told them, highlight some of the things that have worked really well, how you've worked with your sworn partners on securing results. So these are always interesting things to talk about. And then, just on a preparation side, some of us can talk for hours on particular topics. That's not really what they're looking for. Aim at your presentation to be for a 90-minute window. What I've usually done when I've presented in years past is I've aimed for 70, 75 minutes and have some time for questioning, and that leaves you in a pretty good spot. And then also keep in mind you may be asked to present twice if your proposal is accepted.
Yes, and for those that are brand new to IALEIA, or maybe never been to an IALEIA conference before that are listening to this, the normal format for the conference is you'll have repeating sessions from one day to the next. So like a Tuesday and Wednesday, or maybe even a Wednesday to Thursday, I believe. So the idea is that if a session, maybe you missed it the one day, they want to make sure they give opportunity for folks to see it if they did miss it. So normally I think Monday through Thursday is you'll have a series of repeats. I think Friday, the half day, is the ones where you might have the one-offs.
That's correct. That's how they've done it in years past. So if you are thinking about submitting a proposal, the deadline for submitting it is November 22nd. And if it's something you want to do, go to the IALEIA website. It's in the scroll banner right now in the first thing, so you'll be able to see that. I do not know if there's going to be any extension of that submission deadline or not. So if you're thinking about this at all, I would highly recommend put together 1-pager and get that in.
Okay. Yes, because it's 5 p.m. Central on November 22nd at the moment. Obviously, if there is an extension, it will be on the website and the message will go out.
I'm pretty certain they will send that to membership and put it to the website and put the word out.
So that's some interesting tidbits there. I like the fact that you get to go twice. As a presenter, do you like to go twice, or do you think that's too much work for you, or how do you feel about that?
So I think everybody sees this a little bit differently. For me, I like doing it twice because the hard part to me is done putting it together. I've practiced, I've run through it. Personally, I think the second go around is always a little bit better because I know which jokes land and stories stick versus not. But I like it. I think this is good. And as a conference attendee in years past, I've always appreciated that presentations would be offered twice because,
Mhm.
you know, sometimes there's something that is scheduled competitively in competition to something that I want to see, and so you have to make some choices. And while you can't make it to every single presentation, you do get to pick and choose a little bit and customize that. And by offering two opportunities to see a presenter, I think you're addressing that particular need. And so I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. And it does say here that selections will be made by the end of the year, December 31st, 2024.
Yeah. So that's pretty standard and how it has been in years past.
All right. Anything else in terms of call for presentations for the conference?
The only thing that I want to add is if you've never done this, this is a very unique opportunity for you to step out of your comfort zone. Not everybody in our field thinks this is an exciting idea, but I know so many of you work on really interesting topics, practices, cases, or have unique experiences, or knowledge or skills that are worth sharing with the profession and with the attendees. So if you're hesitant whether this is something you should do or should not do, I would encourage you to take that step. It is an interesting feeling to do this for the first time, and I'm not going to deny that this can be a little nerve-wracking, but once you've done it, you are a presenter at an international association and you've shared your knowledge with your peers.
Mhm.
So I think that's a worthy goal, and I like to encourage as many people as possible to do this because I know we have stories, I know we have skills, expertise, and interesting cases out there that are just waiting to be shared with the community.
If the listeners have any questions, Alex, who should they contact, or is there a contact email?
If you have any questions about the conference or related to submitting a presentation, do not hesitate to email the conference chair at conference@ialeia.org, and I am certain they will be able to address those questions far more ably than I can.
All right, very good. Let's finish up then with elections. It's election year for IALEIA, and you happen to be elections chair.
Yes, so I'm excited to have been tasked with serving as the elections chair again for the 2025 board election. So that means I didn't screw up too badly last time around, and so they asked me to do this again. And I'm excited to do this. This is something that is near and dear to my heart, and I'm thrilled to be able to do that. So what does that mean for those who haven't been part of it, maybe new members? As elections chair or chair of the IALEIA Elections Committee, I think that's the official title, I will administer the entire election process, starting with managing nominations for positions, compiling the ballot, managing the voting period, and then tabulating and certifying the results. A lot of that is behind the scenes stuff that doesn't really face membership, but participating in this is important, and I'm excited about it. And so if I can chat a little bit further about it, I'd like to take that opportunity. So if you've been a longtime member of IALEIA, you may remember that traditionally our elections process kicks off sometimes in February, usually mid-February, and then we have a 14-day nomination period, and then we have a voting period for 21 days. And then all of this would usually be settled by the start of the conference, and then the new board takes office on July 1. So after the conference. However, because in 2025 the conference is a little bit earlier than in years past, it shifts the entire elections process up a little bit. So when I did the math and ran through the timelines that are given to us by the bylaws, I felt in order to make sure I get everything settled and resolved comfortably before the conference starts, we have to do this a little bit earlier. So therefore, the call for nominations will open on January 13th.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be open for 14 days, and then voting will begin on February 2nd and be open for 21 days.
Okay. Now the call, let's go over that part first and just go over the procedure and what's, maybe a little bit of the rules, the expectation,
Yeah.
whatnot.
So any member in good standing as of the opening day of the election. So if you're a member prior to January 13, you can nominate another member for serving on the board. There are
Okay.
some positions that have special requirements. For example, I do know that the treasurer needs to be a U.S. citizen. This has to do with banking requirements. Also, our international representative cannot be a U.S. citizen, but has to speak English comfortably enough in order to participate. Those are the big ones that I can think of the top of my head, but if you look at the position descriptions on the website, you'll see those. The other thing to keep in mind is in order to serve on the board, you must have been a member for at least 2 years in good standing. So you couldn't nominate somebody who is a brand new member to the association to serve on the board. So these are some of the very basic requirements. And I think in order to serve as president, you must have been on the board prior. So these are some of the basic requirements there. The way nominations work is you send a message to elections@IALEIA.org. And so I have that. I verify that this person is eligible, whether they accept the nomination, and then I'll put them on the ballot for the position that they were nominated for. People can only be nominated for one position. So
Okay. And so there's no self-nomination. So if you're
right.
somebody that is interested, I guess you need to talk to a buddy that's a IALEIA member and ask them to nominate you.
Correct. This is one of the quirks of our association. You cannot self-nominate. You must have somebody else nominating you who also has to be a member of the association.
Yeah. And everybody, do Alex a favor and don't nominate somebody that doesn't know they're being nominated.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing this up. So this was a big concern last year. People got nominated, and when I reached out to them and said, "That's so exciting, you've been nominated for this role," and they're like, "Who did this to me?" And then some declined that opportunity to run for office. So if you wouldn't mind, if you have somebody in mind who you think would be a wonderful addition to the IALEIA board, and you would love to nominate them and propel them into that esteemed echelon, please ask them for permission and whether they would accept the nomination before you submit their name.
So then there's the nomination process, and as we mentioned, there's the positions have descriptions, and if they have any questions about any of this process, you have already mentioned it's elections@ialeia.org.
Correct.
So then we get to the voting process. So let's go over that a little bit.
So this is very likely to stay the same. We're trying to make some enhancements, but it hasn't been finalized yet. So in order to submit your vote, once the ballot has been set, you will receive an email at your IALEIA membership email, whatever email address you use to access the website, to log into your account. And in that email is a customized link that's tied to your membership number. And that's the one you have to use to vote. And then it just takes you to a website. You click on it, you choose who you want to vote for, and then you click submit, and that's the end of it. So it's fairly easy.
Mhm.
However, that has been in years past the only way you could vote. You needed to have that email with that particular link. So you couldn't just go to the website and log in and find a ballot there because it is tied to your membership number. And we're trying to find another way to do this so that people aren't dependent on just this one particular email that is being sent. But we haven't finalized these plans yet. So I'm talking to some of our leadership and some of our programmers to see how we can make that a little bit easier. But that's the most basic. So at the beginning of the voting process, an email will be sent out to all members in good standing who are eligible to cast a vote, and then you can vote. And we will resend that email periodically, so that if you missed the first one or didn't have a chance to do it, or you want to learn a little bit more about the candidates, need to take some time doing that, you have some time, but you need to submit your vote within the 21 days following February 2nd.
Okay, so definitely be looking out for an email around February. Curious to know situations where you have more than two candidates. Is it still just whoever has the most votes wins? Or I know on the IACA side, there's a ranking system that kicks in if there's more than two candidates running for the same position.
So it would be majority rules.
Mhm.
we do have a process for doing a runoff in case of a tie. So that would be a separate election process or voting process that would be set up after the not primary, but the main election is done. And once we tabulate all the votes and we realize, okay, candidate A and B for this particular office have the same exact number of votes, then I would initiate the process for doing a tiebreaker election, basically.
Okay. All right. And that all makes sense. So that's and you said it was open for 21 days.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to relay in terms of the voting process?
So this is important for those that want to consider running for an office. Our bylaws are pretty clear on this. You may not self-nominate. We've talked about this. You also may not campaign. So this is a little bit challenging in terms of how do you get your best foot forward. The way we do this is once you've accept your nomination, you will be asked to provide a bio sketch, and there's some specific rules that go into how you need to put this together. That will be part of the ballot, so that people who look at the ballot will have next to your name a description of what you stand for, who you are, and what your background is and what you bring to the table.
Okay.
So this is a little bit different than some people may be familiar with in other associations. These are the rules under which we operate.
Okay. And I know last election cycle, nobody ran for vice president. Correct. So if nobody puts in for a position that is open, then it just remains open until the board gets together, convenes, and then fills the position, correct?
Correct. So we ran into this situation with two positions, actually, the vice president and the treasurer role. And so the incoming board that took office after July 1, 2023, then went through the process of filling these roles. And this was one of those examples where people were nominated, but then chose not to accept the nomination. And since that was after the nomination period had closed, there were no other candidates to put onto the ballot, and that's how that ran.
Okay. And so so you have a couple months here to, if you're interested, to start reading up and start contacting folks, getting an idea of what the expectations are, asking around. If you're interested in pursuing one of the board positions, and as Alex said, that it'll come out in January will be the call for to nominate somebody, and then the voting will commence in February. So then this gives some time then for tabulation and to declare the winners of each position. So when do you anticipate that being ready, the announcement of the positions?
So let me look at my timeline real quick. So we think that if I don't have a tie vote to administer or an appeals process to administer, then in early March we would have the results and have a board that is incoming and that will be able to meet with the outgoing board at the conference, and then they're ready to assume their positions on July 1. If there's an appeal or if there's a tie vote, then that pushes it towards the end of March.
Yes, but either way, the anticipation is announcement will be made prior to the conference of the election results, in the hopes that as you mentioned, the new board and the current board can get together as needed to transfer from the current board to the new board that's going to go into July 1st. You said July 1st is when the new term begins, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, excellent. So there's a lot going on now now you understand why you've been so busy recently. They got all this stuff going on with the election. Is there anything else
I would encourage people to do is participate in the elections? And you can do that by thinking about who you think might best serve in a leadership role on the board, and give your membership some choices for candidates to serve.
Yeah. Alex, thank you so much for your time. It was great information to the listeners. We'll have links for you to find out more additional information on all these topics, whether it's the training, whether it's the conference, whether it's the election. All that will be in the show notes, and it's also on the IALEIA website. When it comes to voting, please vote. This is an opportunity to participate, so be on the lookout for the voting period to begin in February. Alex, I'll give you the last word. I really appreciate all that you do for the association and for the profession.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege.
Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. You can show your support by sharing this and other episodes found on our website at www.leapodcasts.com. If you have a topic you would like us to cover or have a suggestion for our next guest, please send us an email at leapodcasts@gmail.com. Till next time, analysts, keep talking.